to something big and couple everything. And call our culture or music or food. So you can take any topic and talk about it. So it's a good start. So I look at Mohit Singh to start.
Hello everyone. I was taking this topic. It was a bit unusual, but sometimes in some process, you take the half of it and you leave the half of it for a better person to follow you. So I guess with this talk, all my mistakes will be forgotten. So from here, I'll start. So I'll talk about the stories in a cell. It's a very interesting topic in which I will cover mainly two parts. A lost wonders is the first part, and the second part is how it's related to Monsoon. And the combining thing which connects these two is the history. So I stand here as a layman in this particular topic, so I'll start. Everyone has seen snails at the very least in the campus, in their house, and they are very slow creatures. So here I'll start with both the topics have some thread in common. Some snails tells the stories of extinction, and some tells the stories of rain. Before even starting from the snail topic itself, I'll give a brief overview of the location where these are found. So just asking one question, simple query, which country has the largest exclusive economic zone? Just any guess? Okay, no, it is France. So if we see here, in the Pacific Islands, here this is a kind of group of 130 groups of islands in French Polynesia, in which there are 5 different groups of kind of groups. One of them is here when we talk about, so at least it's a El Nino year, it's supposed to be. So we all have heard about Tahiti. This is one of the islands in that particular Polynesian group. And this Tahiti is actually very important because this links the first story. And why was observation station even there in Tahiti in the first place? So it has a history because of every science has its own politics and its own objectives. So here, Tahiti was actually an observation station of a French. If you see here, Edmund Halley, he was the first one who was kind of pushing for making this as an observation station because of he was trying to find the distance between sun and the moon, sun and the earth. So he was like proposing this type of observational center. But it was actually when it was confirmed, he was no more. Now, so in this French Polynesia, here we have a group of 130 islands, in which one of them is Society Islands. Here we have lots of islands, but here main islands are Bora Bora, Raitia and Taha, Huahi, Mura, and Tahiti. These are all Society Islands in which the story starts. So I'll talk about two snails here, and the third will be in the next slide. So here we have Partula labrusca, which is commonly called tree snail, and the other one is Acanthina fulica. It is giant African land snail. It's a native to Kenya in Africa. So I just talk about the features of these snails. So these are very small, and this is unlike other snails. It produces young ones rather than large number of eggs. And for centuries, it has survived in these islands. It has survived storms, droughts, and volcanic eruptions. On the contrary, these are not the native of those islands. And this is kind of just talking about this type of snails, its physiology. It lays 1,200 eggs, not in a single, in a single year, in 3 or 4 batches. And it has 140 rows of teeth. So let's say is the mouth. So 140 rows, and each row has about 120 teeth. And so these are kind of eating machines. It just consumes and consumes. It's a very invasive. It's one of the top 100 invasive species in the world. And this one, it was a French colony, as I mentioned earlier. So there was a French border guard at Tahiti, and this person wanted snail soup. For that, he bought 1,000 giant African snails and started a business. The business did not turn out well, So what he did was he left it in the garden, and it was roaming around. And within a couple of years, not a single blade of grass remained in the island of Moria. These are so invasive, and they eat 500 species of plants. If you see around you, you can see it eating concrete, paint, wherever it can get calcium carbonate. So it's a background of the snail. So just giving one more anecdote about this snail. It was the shells are very tough. It is so tough that even tires get punctured at that time. Now tires are very, I would say, robust. And in turn, if not, let's say, crushed, then the shells will turn into projectiles. And suppose it gets ran over, then the slime of this snail can make the car skid. On top of it, talking about human aspect of it, it is a carrier for lungworm and meningitis in humans. So one question is here, this small native species, within a few human generation, I'm talking about human generation, they started disappearing. So the reason is the third snail. So as I mentioned earlier, this was very invasive. So US, being US, always trying to find a solution, they found this, this is called cannibal snail, which is called commonly called rosy wolf snail. So the property of the snail is, I just try to give a brief idea. A cannibalism can happen in different species, but in this species, especially, one reason might be when there is a scarcity of food, but not in this case. Some are by design a predator. So what is very intriguing about this species is they have evolved by eating snails, and if you see here, it has extra tentacles here. So these tentacles are kind of a taste buds. So here, it's one of the fastest species of snails in the snail domain. It can be called the flash of the snails universe. And the peculiar thing about this is, it tastes the slime track of the snail, other snails, and it can get the details of the size, species, and its health status, whether that is a big, a healthy one or it's a bad one. And also, it can get idea about how far it has gone. So this was kind of a guided missile of snail world, and the French government, along with US Department of Agriculture, introduced this species to counter the giant African snail. Although things don't work out as we wanted, so it didn't attack these, they attacked the other one, the tree snail. So this was like a Holocaust, or you can say on one day they found millions of hollowed cells. It was like empty soup bowls lying along all the islands. So there was a researcher, Clarks and Murrays, who were kind of studying about the biology, the evolutionary biology of the snails, how they get the stripes, the colors, and they used to collect all different types of snails here in this particular island. What happened was, because of the population was declining, they were not able to find these type of snails. So they switched their domain and they started learning about, okay, what is happening in this particular domain, and they did one experiment. It's famously called Clark's and Murray's lunchbox experiment, in which they added these 3 snails in a lunchbox. What happened was, the rosy snail, left this giant African snail, came to this, flipped it over, and consumed it. So this was a kind of a sinister snail, and this is how they got to know that sometimes what we want doesn't happen linearly. So this is the first part, and here in July 2002, this species was extinct by IUCN. And talking about the first part here, we talked about giant African snail. It grows till 20 centimeter, and that is where it captures multiple aspects. One of the aspects is it captures the rhythms of the monsoon. So in nature, and nature as well as in any complex system, we rarely find 1 + 1 equals to 2 in nature. So that's what we see when we see in multiple complex system. We don't account for multiple things like in this case as well. So here talking about monsoon. So I'll take a research paper which was recently published in 2017. So here, just giving an idea about how the shells are there in the snail. This is called the aperture. These are apex. This is the oldest part of the snail, and this is the youngest part. So the thing is, when the snails grow, they put all the calcium sequentially. This is called a hole, and this is what we kind of study. By going spirally, we take some samples and we drill it, and we take the samples and then we study it. So in that particular study, which I'm going to talk about, it is located in this particular region in Kolkata. Here, what they have done is they have taken a snail sample in 2009 and the water sample of the same year, same monsoon year. So I'll take a bit time to explain what exactly are they measuring from the snail sample as well as in the rainwater. So it's a dense slide. I will try to make it a bit simple. So when we take the rainwater sample, what they are doing is they're adding known CO2 gas. Known means here the oxygen 16 or oxygen 18, let's say, amount is known in this particular gas, known gas, and they are putting in this particular rainwater. So H2 plus CO2, and when before we don't know what is the O18 delta O18O, but afterwards we have to find what is the amount. So what we do is they add CO2 here with a known delta 18, and they, after this equilibrium is established, they measure CO2. CO2 is the byproduct here. So and the other one, when we talk about the shell, they take the shell at a sampling of 2 millimeter interval, and what they do is they drill about 2 millimeter, and they add phosphoric acid, and in this reaction, CO2 is produced. So in either of the method, the common denominator is the CO2 that is getting produced. And in CO2, when in either of these, is passed through a gas bench, in which after this isotope ratio mass spectrometer, they measure mass 44 and mass 46. This is a kind of a diagram in which CO2, when we pass it through ionizer, the oxygen gets ionized, and along this particular magnetic field, we see more the mass, less the displacement. So this is how they measure the mass 44 and mass 46. Now I'll just talk about how exactly they're comparing these two particular years, which turned out to be a El Nino year and drought year, both of them. So they had a sample from Natural History Museum of two samples they had of shells of this particular giant African snail, and the other one they collected in 2009. So this is earlier one, and pre is the present. Present means 2009. So whatever information we have for 2009 is, we have the rainwater measurement, exact dates of the species when they were captured. But for the earlier one, we neither have the rainfall measurement, rainfall in the sense rainfall samples, or nor we have the exact dates of the species. So they used some Monte Carlo age model to fine-tune when it was captured. Now I'll just go through a simple, let's say, flow chart here. So in 2009, what they do was, they have a rainfall event. They collected the water, and then after they collect the water, they had measurement of O18 in the rainwater. Afterwards, they take the snail, living snail, they drill the cell, and they measure the O18 of the cell. And then this type of comparison of this O18 of the cell as well as O18 of the rainwater, they find the inverse relationship. It means when it's a dry spell, it has higher delta 18O, and in a wet spell, it has a lower value of delta 18O. Now, there's I'll just go through the results. This is for the first time when somebody at least in Kolkata, in this region, have kind of measured O18 values. So here, the idea is when the trajectories, this is from high split, when the trajectories are coming from continental or Arabian Sea or Bay of Bengal, they have a different signature of O18. So their idea was when it's coming from Bay of Bengal, which is usually late in the season, so it has most depleted 18 values. But when it's coming from the continental regions, it has higher O18 values. So the hypothesis they produces when this rainwater goes through recycling, it actually depletes O18 because O18 is harder for evaporation than O16 compared with. So this is one of the results. And the second result, which is the main result, it is when they compare, this is pre-2 is when they take the resolution of the drilling at 2 millimeter, and this is 4 millimeter. So this is a better resolution. So when they measured this shell's O18 values against the rainfall, so they found that the relationship which they had actually found out was actually holding true, and which they extended to 1918. So whatever peaks are we are finding it here, it's a time method they use to shift it, wiggle it, and then they kind of reconstructed it. So these are the two main results of the paper. So so I'll just go to next discussion point. So the innovation in this research paper was, so at least if we have the cells, we can at least create a paleo archive from the cells itself. And the second one is it captures the active and dry spells. So, but in this paper, I felt there are some limitations as well. Like there was not independent reconstruction or validation exercise. It was, and also it was kind of a potential circularity can be seen in this research paper because they are taking the rainwater, then taking a shell, and then kind of using these two to create the third one. It can create a circularity, and the sample size is always an issue. And this calibration was based on a single year and a single species and a single environment. So it can be, these are some limitations. Now, this was in the campus. We also have snails here. So last, I guess, 14th, we captured some garlic snails. And this is a pillar snail, which is commonly found here. And neither of these are in, I would say, this is not native to India. Because of the exotic species in the campus, it might have come from some other place. And so I'll end my talk with some further reading. Here, we're going to have a look at these 3 books for your better understanding.
Next question.
Okay. So they used one method called, okay, this was the thing. So for 2019 cell, they had this minima. And also what they observed was, I'll just show the figure, it will be a bit easier. So for this one, the stars are the tie points. These are the kind of minima or the maxima. So for these, they use as the let's say points, let's say for the cell, and for the rainfall, they had the rainfall data from IMD for the station. So they kind of, we have more uncertainty here, like you have measurement, plus you have growth rate in a cell, in a snail, and on top of it, this peak value will not correspond to the peak value of rainfall. It might have a delay. So all these kind of delay when you combine. So you will have, they use Monte Carlo kind of 5,000 simulations in which they take different type of uncertainties and they match these 2 points and ultimately they construct this type of plot. Pages went down, please.
How long they need
Which one?
lifespan of it?
Okay, 1 to 2 years. 1 to 2 years.
Just 2 years.
I mean, different species have different lifespan, but the major growth period is in the monsoon. And 1 year to 2 years is like maximum. I mean, lifespan in a sense, they can just, some species can go for 5 to 10 years when in captivity. because in captivity they provide different types of nutrients to them. Like there is when I was searching for it, they had a diet plan how to make even them last longer. Like in this particular case, in this particular case, when these two were kind of, it was not like an experiment. They were trying to put them into multiple locations. So the Cambridge Institute was one of the institutes in which they were sending these samples. While sending the samples, they were putting them in a closer and giving them all the nutrients. And they have a nutrient diets, which is they have prepared based on the experiences they have. So in captivity, they actually last longer. So this giant snail, 1 to 2 years, one of other species can last for 5 to 10 years. And why we chose this one? Because this is very invasive and it can grow 20 centimeter or more. Correct. So when we see, so here we have two things. When they stop growing. So when the relative humidity is less than 55%, what they do is they go inside the shell, block it, and it's called estivation period. It depends highly on the temperature as well as the humidity. But second part, the growth uncertainty. So when they observed here in the campus itself, a different research paper, they tried to see how exactly they respond with different types of diets and temperature. So its growth period, depending upon different conditions, 0.1 millimeter per week to 0.4 millimeter per week. This was the growth kind of a period in their captivity. So it is very variable, but when the humidity is right, they don't stop growing. They always have a growth stage at that point. And the mean growth was 0.27 millimeter per week.
About 10 to 15 years back, we had a sudden invasion of these snails. I mean, they look more like African giant snails, if you remember. About 15 years back or 10 years back, they would be everywhere, climbing everywhere. I don't know how they eradicated them, you don't ask me. They were really invasive, but everywhere you could find them. And sometimes they would get under the cars, and it was really messy. And they looked like those African landscapes.
Yes.
It was introduced by it was not invasive. It was not. No, this was before that, because this was in the late 90s and early 2000s, it really became massive. That's what I remember.
So to eradicate it, we have this pest method, which doesn't work. Second one is like in insecticide, we have molluscicide, but it will impact the soil as well. And the third one is iron phosphate method, in which it's less harmful to the soil. So these are the multiple ways. So in Africa itself, when it is native to Africa, Kenya, they have a festival over there. In Brazil, because it's also in Brazil, what they do is children go outside. It's a holiday. It's called Sea Day, in which they go outside. They capture as many snails as they can in a day, and they come and kill them all. And they make jewelries out of it, the cells. So it's one of the natural ways they kind of started to control because they're native to those lands. So they evolved using the culture of that particular region.
Yeah. Okay. We got an interesting story from Mohit. Now we'll tell a bad news. Okay. So the monsoon is not going too well, and other thing. And you can see from this picture taken today that almost all of India is dry. Some parts of northeast and some parts of Kerala are wet. Okay. And yesterday, IMD declared that the monsoon is sluggish. I don't know what they mean. So. Yeah, so monsoon is sluggish. That means they really don't know why after the onset over Kerala, monsoon has not moved. Okay? And this one, I think we have to talk about this. Traditionally in India, for the last 100 years, onset over Kerala was the reference point for Indian monsoon, but which is not correct. I understand before satellites came, Kerala was the first spot where monsoon came, so that was the reference point. But Kerala onset has nothing to do with all India onset, no connection. Okay? And that's why there are years they are talking about bogus onset and so many other words. But technically, if you want to talk about all India monsoon rainfall, you must talk about onset over central India. That should be the reference point. But somehow that's not the case. We keep talking about Kerala onset mainly. So, yeah. So this is example of the data onset for Kerala. Okay. Red are the years where it was late, blue years it was below, and then the mean. Okay. But this has no connection to what happens over all of India. Now, so people have thought about alternative definition of monsoon onset. This one is from University of behaviour, along with Professor Goswami. They define onset in terms of the mean temperature of the troposphere. Okay. Now, I have two objections to it. One is it is not measured as well as rainfall. Okay. And to me, monsoon is rainfall. Okay. Although it causes temperature change. Second problem I have with the definition is the average between 40 east and 100 east. To me, that's not India. That's a whole region. So I don't know whether it will, but people are following this. But to me, it's not clear why the Indian monsoon onsets were related to something on such a large scale. Okay. Now, this is the wave of monsoon onset which Chinese have been interested in for a long time because the Chinese onset follows the wave of onset, and they have looked at in El Nino year they have shown that onset is late by 10 to 20 days. So what we are seeing this year is really some connection to El Nino. But still, I have not seen a good paper explaining why monsoon occurs late. Although Arina has some idea, I think they published it, right? Yeah. So the point is that monsoon is delayed in El Nino year and it comes early in La Nina year. This is a purely observational fact, but there is no theory to explain why it happens. Now, there is a very interesting paper published 10 years ago by Stolobova. Okay? It's pretty complicated. So they were really about onset. If you talk to people in hydrology, they have something called hydrological onset. Okay? That depends upon rainfall, evaporation, and so on. And PDL has a nice definition based on one paper, which I like. But remember that onset definition depends on the application. If you are in agriculture, you would like the hydrological onset, but that's relevant to you. Even more than that, I found out that after the onset date in a particular part of India, if there is 10 days of no rain, that is not good for agriculture. So agriculture, because you want to plant your seed there, and after planting, there is no 10 days, the seed is gone, all the mud is gone. So for agricultural purpose, onset is defined when first rain starts and continues for some time, not stops. Okay? So, but this is a purely theoretical definition based on understanding of in physics. So the idea is that onset is a sudden phenomenon. It's a transition. Okay? The one example I can think of as an engineer is laminar flow to turbulent flow. It occurs suddenly at one Reynolds number. Okay? So this is the similar fact. So people have studied this a lot in physics, and what they say is before the onset occurs, the variance changes. Okay? Water vapor or something will change rapidly. So just based on variance change, they are able to say when the onset will occur. Now this is a very complicated paper. I would like some of you interested in reading it. So she has made prediction for the last 10 years of onset, not only over Kerala, over all parts of India, based on this method. Very complex method, but it seems to work. And the one which completely puzzles me is she takes 2 points, one in North Pakistan, other in Eastern Ghats, and uses that as basis. I still don't know why. I still not figured out why she does that. Okay, let's look at this. This here, El Nino is now crossed 0.9. Relative El Nino, actually El Nino is, if your old way is 1.5. Okay. Now, the onset is stuck here. Monsoon progress all the way here 9 days ago, and is just stuck there. Okay? And some progress on the northeast side, but the heart of India, where the monsoon would have been here, right here in Madhya Pradesh, it's not gone. And the bad news is there is no indication it's going to move very soon. Okay. Now, what is the state of the monsoon? Pretty bad. In the last 15 days of monsoon, it is 35% below normal. Okay? Now, one can still hope that the next 15 days will wake up. That could happen in a normal year. But today, we have an El Nino going, so there is a very good chance that it will rapidly change. So June is gone. So the prediction of 92% is completely wrong. And I fear, from what you see now, it may be 50% below normal. Okay? That would be shocking when it can happen. Now, it will happen. Look at 1 year drought. Yes, there are many years where monsoon increases below 100 millimeters, which is very rare. So, the recent past was 2009 and 2014. Both are below 100, and both were drought years. So, this is going in that direction. Now, you can see that during the last 16 days, only 1 day the oriental rainfall was just above climatology. Only 1 day. So that is very bad news so far. And the forecast for today on GFSS, as you saw in the picture, no rain anywhere. Okay? So this forecast was accurate 4 days back, and it said that monsoon is not going to progress. Now, why is that happening? Now, if you look at the most important thing about monsoon onset of India is you have to get enough water vapor coming into India. Okay? Without water vapor, monsoon cannot move. Because remember that difference between land and ocean. Ocean has no problem, there's water below, is evaporating all the time. But ocean water vapor is not a criteria. What criteria is amount of rain coming in and amount of evaporation going up. Both these play a role. Over land, we are starting with the dry season. So unless the water vapor builds up here through pre-monsoon thunderstorm and other phenomena, your monsoon not onset. Now, you can see right now, this is on today forecast, but it's very good, right? Arabian Sea has only 40 kg per meter square. Bay Bengal has 70. Okay? So until this picks up, monsoon will not occur. Okay? So this is the state now. But you look at the forecast. 1 week from now, things are looking good. The water vapor is building up. And look at the winds. This is a classic symptom of delayed onset. The wind, instead of going this way, is going around India. We have seen this many times in the last 10 years, that if the onset is not occurring, then there is some other heat source here, and so it goes around India. Okay? So, although the water vapor is built up, even after 1 week, you will not get rid of India. So, all the indications are that the monsoon starts moving not only from 15 days from now. Okay? That means June is pretty much gone. That's why I think June will have less than 2% rainfall, which will be one of the lowest, and I don't see any simple way this thing can turn around. The only possibility is a miracle that happened in 1997 when suddenly IOD came into the picture. Okay? Now I have to tell you, I'm a skeptic about IOD because it comes after monsoon. Okay? It does not have as much predictive value as 3.4. But the recent work done by my students shows why. The reason why I didn't like IOD is I couldn't see a simple way where cooling of this region affects the Indian monsoon. I have no problem with this. If during a positive IOD this is very warm, more water vapor comes in, no problem. That's a very simple. The patient might know what they call it. But the cooling of this at the equator, why should it affect the monsoon? But now, according to Arinam, I see a very interesting possibility. When there is a lot of cooling here and a lot of warming here, there's a large longitudinal gradient in temperature that causes meridional motion, and that brings in moisture from the south, not from the west. Okay? And so during IOD years, positive IOD years, you will see a lot of surge of additional moisture, which is not there normally. So that's the part which is a new result which has come out. Okay? Now, let's look at the forecast for the next till July 9. Okay? This is instrument of here. It's terrible, absolutely. So they are saying all the 4 weeks, it is around 5 to 10 millimeters below normal. Okay? Millimeter per day. Okay? So this is completely a gone case, and this is going to be a crisis in North India. There will be heat waves of unbelievable magnitude in most of North India, and so the agriculture will be delayed by 1 month. If you are a farmer in North India, you can't plant anything. Okay? Now, this is another thing I will talk about later in this monsoon season, which is that onset is very important for 2 reasons. One, it determines water availability in the whole of India. The place of Bombay will have serious crisis. You recall a couple years back, it was not Bombay, it was some part of Maharashtra. They have to bring water by train. Okay? Because when the rainfall doesn't come on time, we are living in very low. So this is going to cause a lot of crisis in the next 1 month. And this, along with the Iran war, which delayed fertilizer in India, that's why the Prime Minister was warning everyone that you're going to have a bad time this year. The only good news is there's no election this year. Okay, now let's look at the forecast made by Anchor. They are completely wrong in terms of the cold rainfall. They have a huge wet bias, which I'm surprised by. We're all used to dry bias, right? Most physics models are dry bias, but somehow this model has a wet bias. I don't know why.
Basically, these are AI-based models.
Okay.
They are running off-the-shelf AI-based models.
Okay.
In their own initial conditions.
Okay.
And the only thing is they are putting in the
But in spite of the wet bias, I'm impressed with the fact they are getting the trend correction. They are predicting increase and then decrease that's coming with correction. Okay? So in spite of the wet bias, the trend is correct. So they were right, saying it will increase slightly, decrease slightly. So if I was there, I would take this value, divide by 2 and say that's the answer. That's the bias correction, which I don't like, but people do it because they have to do it. Okay, what's for the next 10 days? You can see that it is all hovering around 3 millimeters per day. Okay? Which would have been 6 millimeters, so it's 50% of what it should be. So my prediction based on this, if this forecast is correct, June rainfall will definitely be below 100 millimeters. Okay? And so that along with what you see for July looks very bad because normally Indian monsoons may contribute more than August. Even when June is low, there are years when they are made up. Okay? But if July and August are below normal, there is just no hope. Okay? Now, what again, this is prediction based on yesterday. Okay? Today, just before coming, I had one more look. They make one more prediction. Suddenly, it's going up. Okay? That also worries me. That means the forecast 10th day forecast is very sensitive to initial condition. Okay. So let's see if this comes out right. That means they assimilated something today which makes a better forecast. Let's see if that's true or not. The previous one said will go down. Okay. Now I want to again compare two forecasts. Forecast made on 3rd June and 10th June. Okay, two forecasts. Now, everything is shifted. What is week 2 is week 1 here. And you can see that, again, forecast is not stable. Okay. Let's focus on Central India. This says minus 45. That said minus 21. Just 1 week. Again, showing very high sensitivity to initial condition. And you're talking about all India, I'm not talking about local forecasts. Okay. So you can see that in the month of June, actually, it's very sensitive to initial condition. Now, let's ask question, why is the monsoon delayed? Okay. People have one is El Nino, that's a very broad region. You're not saying how El Nino causes delay. So there are others who have speculated about it. So here is the state of MJO, starting 40 days back. This is the observation. Then forecast starts here on 15 June and goes on till 14 July. Okay. What's saying that next few days MJO will be very weak inside the circle and then it will strengthen. Okay. Now that's also bad news. Now remember that in the tropics there are only two big, shall we say, dons, two big people there. One is MJO, one is Monsoon. They fight with each other. Both require moisture to converge to sustain them. Okay. One is around the equator, one is in India. So what happens is, when the monsoon is good, MJO is weak, and monsoon is bad, MJO is strong. Okay. So one cannot say one causes the other, unfortunately. They are going together. Okay. So the fact that MJO is strengthening implies already that monsoon is not going to strengthen. Okay. Let's see the point. Here is another forecast based on velocity potential, which is a little smoother. You can see it starts from June 6th here, okay? Am I right? Yeah, June, 15 June here, and goes up to 15 July, okay? And you see the velocity potential, this is the area of descent at the upper level. You see what's happening here. This is really worrying. Look at this. Or Arabian Sea is really talking about descent motion. So this, along with other forecasts clearly shows that the monsoon is not going to revive at least till 15th of July. Okay. This is also CAOS forecast. Yeah. Now we are saying this. I'll repeat this. This is EWR forecast for the 3rd week of July, again showing clear indication that not only India, but over most of this region, East Asia is slightly better. That is below normal rainfall. And this is the previous week again. So all these are showing consistently that for reasons which you don't understand, the monsoon is not going to revive. Okay? Now, remember we discussed 2023 monsoon a couple of years back when we discussed this. The unique part of that monsoon was the month of August. Month of August, almost every week across one was below normal. Okay? It was the most amazing month in terms of a break, similar to July 2002. These are 2 months which are remarkable. Okay? Now, I saw a paper published by Mahindra over here on this issue. That's a paper published only to discuss this. Okay? And it shows very nicely that August month, the MJO was in a phase, which all of you know about, and I'll show you, in a phase where it is unfavorable for monsoon. Okay? That is an observation. Okay? That is not an explanation. We cannot use this way, MJO is causing monsoon, which is not true, because all the work on MJO has been done has been what is called analog forecasting. All of you remember, there are 3 kinds of forecasts going on now. One is analog, other is statistical, dynamical. Okay? Now today we are familiar with animal principle, but I can tell you 70 years ago, before the satellite computers came, almost all the photographs were analog. There was no other way. So I remember my uncle who was a VP of IIT, he used to look at the pressure charts, look at the pattern of pressure, compare it with what happened 20, 30 years ago, based on that, make a forecast. So that's the only way to do it, there's no other choice. So, to people who say that because NGOs in this way and hence monsoon has failed are not giving you a real explanation, they're giving you a saying this is what happened in the past. But the reason why I don't completely believe it is because monsoon and MGO are systems which go against each other. So monsoon fails, MGO will be high always. Okay? So I'm told by Mahindra that similar 2002 there's similar picture. Okay? You cannot say it's not a proof. It's the association. Okay? Now this is the phase diagram people draw based on climatology. You take last 50 years of data of MGO and you will see that if you are in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 1, phase 6, phase 1, phase 8, you will see that over this region it is dry. Okay? That is past observation. What I want you to notice that that dry spot is not over India. Okay? It is over the ocean. Okay? So even if you believe in analog forecasting, all you can say is that to the south of India, rainfall will go MGOs to this space. Right? But it has no physical explanation why MGO is located at that point and not anywhere near here. It is on the other side of the world, Western Hemisphere. How can it affect the monsoon? Nobody has come with explanation. Okay, but I can tell, but again, physical drawing. This is all the ecosystem events showing the importance of MGO in winter and boreal summer, heat and ocean summer. Okay, this clear transition. That's why during month of May, June, and maybe September, October, you will see a positive impact of MGO. For example, onset phase. In the onset phase, if MGO came over equatorial Indian Ocean, it might enhance it. Or if it's in some other phase, it might not. That's possible. Okay? The idea is that the onset of monsoon depends on many things, and MGO may be one factor which might delay. So, so this year, MGO has already got past this region and gone to the other side. But from that side, how it affects monsoon, I have not seen a paper. If any of you have seen the paper, please show me that. Now, the other point, one very important point I learned from this paper was learning. Impact of NGO on monthly mean climate is not easy because it's a moving system, not a stationary system. Okay? There's a 30 to 60 day period. So he makes a point that on a monthly average, it filters out its signal, so the net effect on monthly anomaly is weak. Okay? But if the MGO is stationary, then there's a chance. If it doesn't move, it doesn't impact. But MGO is moving at the usual rate, it moves, then it will not have a large impact, maybe a few days, but not for a month. So the August 2023 and just let us know, to me, you cannot blame it on MGO for a very long period. But if somebody goes and looks at it and shows me that MGO was stationary, yeah, I'm going to believe it. But even then, you tell me the physical process. Okay? And I hope Mahindra will look at it and tell us sometime how MGO, which is stationary, affects monsoon. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is, after reading Mahindra's paper, I saw another paper which said that the 2023 monsoon failure was due to extreme current wildfire. I don't believe it, okay? But it is a paper based on a model in which they put in the fire and the aerosol cools the atmosphere, and they claim it affects the monsoon. Okay? So I would not believe it unless 10 different models know that yes, I will believe it. But one model you cannot trust. We all know symmetric models, they have all kinds of problems. So when one paper and one model cannot prove this. So now you have two hypotheses. one is MGO for that month, or this. The only way you can do this, you have to get more data to confirm which of them is true. Now, I want to end on this note. I'm going to make a lot of strong statements, so there's a forum in which you can say whatever you want. Remember that all of us human beings are not Feynman or Einstein. Okay? So we have all of physicists, we have all of this one. So, whatever one scientist says may or may not be true. Okay? So, sometimes this is misused in the climate change discussion to say that we cannot trust climate change. That's not true. It is true, individual scientists may be wrong, but the system is so good that you publish a paper saying this is the theory, somebody else something else, after some time, a jury resolves it based on many publications, who is right. So science has a beautiful way of self-correcting after many people have looked at it, and it is done in a democratic way. So finally, but you shouldn't trust any one scientist because he has his own, he has to get promoted, he has to get a job, he has to get so many things. He can say things are wrong. But ultimately, in the scientific, there are billions of scientists around the world, ultimately they come to agreement only after enough work is done, and based on that, you can show which of the theories are valid. So the effect of MGR monsoon is still waiting to be resolved. And it will be resolved after many more exams are taken. I don't know whether anybody has done six trial MGO comparison. Any paper anybody seen comparing all models MGO? I think there are papers on that, but on not the relevance. I've seen papers comparing MGO, so that's a very standard practice. In fact, on monsoon, I have not seen. So, university, please tell me, we will discuss that. Okay? Yeah. Now, next week, talk will be by Dr. K. Rajendran, who was a student here more than 20 years ago. Okay? And he joined CMAX, which is now called Ford Paradigm Institute. And he is now a director of this institute in Kerala, in Kottayam. And so every year, he comes here and discusses how well CFS2 forecast the seasonal mean. Okay? It's already done IMD, but IMD doesn't give all the details. The advantage of he runs the model right here in Bangalore, in the web computer in CMAX, and he will give us details of each of the 20 or 30 examples he does. So we'll learn much more about, for example, the forecast that IMD has given is a combination of statistical and analytical. We don't know the details. It's done in a secret room, we all meet and discuss and come with an answer. Okay? I wish it was more transparent. I would like to see transparency in that. So, rather than run the same model as they have run out here, it's going to give more details. What we want to know, I want to know is, what is the spread in the example? The spread is very large, then you cannot trust the model. Okay, so that's the part Rajendran will highlight next week. So make sure you ask any questions because for the first time you get some idea about how sensitive the model is to heat conditions. So, for example, it's very sensitive to heat conditions for a 10-day forecast. For a seasonal forecast, I am not seeing enough papers highlighting how sensitive the model is to heat conditions. Secondly, we also will find out how well CFS2 model predicts the evolution. So that also is important. Okay? So we'll see you next week. Any questions? Okay, thank you.